Welcome, everyone, back to my top 25 college football teams. And I know a lot of people will be shocked that you are here unless you pay attention to football, because I think it makes all the sense in the world that Illinois is in this top 25 for a multitude of reasons. But before we get talking about that and introduce with everybody, all of your information will be in the will be in the description box below, so they can information. And the other thing is, this will be released by the order of my top 25. So the last place team, or the team I think is going to be 25th, will release on the first, and then we'll work our way down. So, having said all of that, this is obviously our first conversation, and I cannot wait to talk to you all about Illinois football. So, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us whatever it is you want us to know, and then tell us like how long you've been a fan.
Yeah, for sure. First off, thanks for having me. Really love the series that we did, or you're doing. I checked out the NFL kind of series that you had. It was awesome. So really love this idea. And when you hit me up to kind of do this, I was super excited. So thanks for having me, first off.
Of course.
But I'm Alex, owner of Armchair Illini, armchairillini.com. We are basically just a small Illinois website, not really associated with some of the big names, 247, On3, Rivals, what have you. So yeah, it's basically me, a couple other writers. The funny thing is all of us have full-time jobs, but we're just huge fans of Illinois, everything Illinois related. Love the place. The way I became a fan is obviously growing up in the state of Illinois, but I went there for undergrad, and that was obviously where my love for the school and all its athletics kind of sprouted. But just growing up in the state, you kind of think, you see college for the first time, and the first thing we jump to as people in Illinois is the University of Illinois, the flagship university of the state. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on here. Check out armchairillini.com. We try to post every day to cover Illinois.
And I will tag it. I'll tag it for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. On Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Twitter, we're a little goofy on there. We like to throw a lot of silly things that sometimes I'm not really proud of, but it's a fun time. So hit us with the follow. Would be much appreciated.
I love it. So when I reached out to you and said I'm doing my top 25, what did you think? Were you like, okay, she knows football, or were you like, why us? Or what were your thoughts? Like, how are you all feeling about heading into the season?
I think kind of how we were talking about before, it's like Illinois has been such a basketball school, not just for the past couple years, but for as long as we can remember, ever since probably the early 2000s when we made the Rose Bowl. For those 20 plus years, it's been a strict focus on basketball because football just hasn't simply been very good. And if they have been good, they have 1 year and then they're not really able to follow that up. But Bret Bielema, when he came here back in 2020, the biggest thing that he really emphasized was sustained success. And I think that's something that he's been trying to work for. In 2022, 23, he had this really good season, went 8-5, and everyone's like, whoa, is this thing for real? Is this just a fluke? The next year they kind of failed to live up to expectations, went 5-7, and fans kind of thought, well, here we go again, kind of working our way back up. But which led us into last year, where we really exceeded expectations. And I think the biggest thing was that we had a lot of players leaving when the team first went 8-5 and had that really good season. A lot of players left, but this time a lot of players are coming back. Obviously, you lose Pat Bryant, your main receiver, to the NFL, but you're returning Luke Altmaier, your starting quarterback, who's been here for, this will be year 3. And he's returning as one of the top quarterbacks in the country. You return your entire offensive line that helped you win that bowl game against South Carolina, and you return some key players on the defensive end. Gabe Backus up front, Xavier Scott in the back as a DB. So you're returning a ton of key pieces, and now the expectation's high, and it's never been like this for quite some time. So I think it's definitely warranted, given that you won 10 games last year, you beat an SEC program. And you had 3 losses against Oregon, Penn State, and then Minnesota, which they probably should have won. But you lost against Oregon and Penn State, 2 of the best teams in the country. So the expectation is certainly high, and I think for the most part, people are respecting that. But kind of because of the history that we have, not everyone's seeing that.
Yeah, that's fair. And too, for me, I looked at the schedule also, and I was just like, this could work. Like this has all like the pieces where you're like, retaining talent, being good the year before, like all the like little bitty things. So I love that. So okay, having said that, what would success be like for you this year? What are you thinking? How far do you think this team can go?
Hi, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure that you're subscribed to my channel and turn on those notification bells. And if you're filling up to it, don't forget to leave me a comment in the comment section below.
That's the tough part because I think, especially as a younger fan too, growing up, if you tell us that we're going to win 7 or 8 games, we'd be like, "Whoa, I'll take it. I'll
Pretty
take it."
great. Yeah.
But I think now, given that you won 10 games last year, you won the Citrus Bowl, you return a lot of those pieces back. If you don't repeat, or if not capitalize on this moment, it's not going to be considered a success. If they win 7 or 8 games, go to the Pinstripe Bowl or whichever one of those smaller bowls, I don't think fans would be very satisfied. They'd be
Okay.
happy, but I think that would be kind of considered a unsuccessful season given what they're returning and given the expectation on them. So I think success would only be viewed as doing similar, if not more, than what they did last year, repeating 10 wins, being at the top of the Big Ten standings. That has to happen if they want to consider this a successful season.
Okay. What do you think the team's strengths are of the team this season, heading into the season? How are you feeling? Like, what is the thing where you're like, okay, I know for sure we're going to be okay with this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing will be the run game. Talking about those 5 offensive linemen returning, protecting the quarterback, but then you have a stable of running backs that are extremely, extremely talented, and you have a lot of depth there. One of them is bound to have an injury, unfortunately. That's just kind of the nature of the running back room, but you have so many horses in that backyard, so to speak. And they're experienced guys, Aiden Lawfrey, Caden Fagan. They have some young guys in Khalil Valentine. Unfortunately, they lost their senior running back to Georgia, which Bret Bielema made some interesting comments about.
Yeah.
But they got a lot of horses up there. So the run game is going to be really good. And then you have the quarterback in the passing game to kind of keep people off guard, because Luke Altmaier is no slouch. And I think he's going to use that run game really, really well. And that's going to be a strength of this team.
I love it. What about concerns or weaknesses? What are you seeing as something that you're kind of going, oh man, just please figure it out?
Yeah, it's a couple things. I think weakness would be depth on the offensive line. They're not really confident in some of the guys in the 2 deep.
Beyond the 5.
Exactly, beyond the
Got
5.
it.
They
Okay.
have some young players that are kind of sitting there, but they haven't had game experience. And I think depth on the defensive side of the ball, particularly up front, if you go past Gabe Akers, you go past Xavier Scott, and some of those returning guys, there's not much back there besides some very young talent and some transfers that they're relying on to take a jump. So I think depth, particularly in the trenches, will be something to keep an eye on. And if they go through an injury, which knock on wood doesn't happen, I think it could be pretty tough for the guys that are sitting in the back. And anytime you lose your top 2 receivers as well, that's always going to be a concern. You lose Pat Bryant, who was a 3rd-round draft pick. Zachary Franklin, who's one of the most productive college football wide receivers ever. You're going to have some question marks, but they did do a great job reloading and bringing in some good guys. So
I love
those
it.
are probably the two main things.
Okay. You mentioned bringing in guys. Where does Illinois recruit? Like, do you have like, is it local talent? Is it just like Northeast talent? Is it central? Like, where do you find that you all are generally recruiting from?
Yeah, I think recently, especially since Bret Bielema got here compared to his predecessors, he's really drawn a border around the state, and
Okay.
he's recruited the state extremely, extremely well. The state of Illinois has a ton of talent. If you look at the city of Chicago, the suburbs of Chicago, central Illinois, where it's a huge, huge market, Metro East area, if you kind of break it down into those 4 areas of the state, they're not going to get everyone. There's going to be those top end guys who go to Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, all Midwest schools, but they've really done a good job on getting the top 300 level prospects, and guys with Power 5 offers that in the past they really weren't getting. So I think a good majority have come from in-state, and then they've really focused on Florida. They're starting to get into Texas more. Florida, they have a lot of connections with some of the defensive backs there. But Florida, Texas, in-state Illinois, and they're really starting to get into Ohio a little bit. They have a 4-star linebacker currently in their class of 2026. So I think those are kind of the 4 main quarters of their recruitment.
That's awesome. And then my last question before we get into the schedule is, what does it feel like as a fan right now of historically a basketball region? I'll just say that. And obviously the Bears are there and all that, but like historically for college sports, I feel like football isn't something usually people talk about often. So can you feel a difference? Do the games feel different? Like is the environment different? Like what is the vibe like around there?
Yeah, I think it's still kind of taking shape. I still feel like some students and fans who graduated around the time that I did in 2017 are still kind of expecting the worst and still conditioned to feel
Fair.
that way.
Yeah.
Even myself, I remember I went to U of I from about 2013 to 2017, and no one cared about game day. People would walk past and be like, is the football team losing again? Not many people showed up. And it was really, really tough. And I think that's kind of taken a shift. Last year, you've had multiple sellouts, which as a student, when I was there, you probably couldn't even dream of. And the student section's full, they're engaged, and Memorial Stadium's packed, something I thought I would never see because it was always, different chops of it completely empty. So I think it's still settling in for people my age. But I think if they can really capitalize on some of the momentum that they have, I think this could be something that could become an everyday thing. I think we're still starting to realize that we're a successful football program. And I think if you could really capitalize on some of the opportunities that you have this year, that would go such a long way to kind of sustaining it.
Okay. I love it. So let's get into the schedule because I think, like I said before, I think the schedule is why there's so much like this could actually be a thing. I think some people have said the Indiana of last year and all the different comparisons, but how do you feel about the schedule? And like, what is the one game that you're super excited to see them play?
Yeah, I don't want to get too ahead of myself because anytime I do, they typically tend to trip up just as from a fan's perspective. But like you said, the schedule is super favorable, all leading up to a game versus Ohio State in the middle of the season at home. If they can just do their work, win the 3 non-conference games where you have some very, very winnable opponents, Western Illinois, but then Duke is probably the only, high major program, which could be tricky, given what Manny Diaz is doing there. But then you play Indiana, who lost a lot. You play Purdue, who's first year under head coach, and you're playing USC, who I think match up pretty good with as Illinois. So if you could win those 6 games, that means you'd be 6-0 heading into a home game versus the Ohio State Buckeyes versus the defending national champions. If you could just build up the hype onto that date and go 5-1 or 6-0, that place is going to be rocking. And whether you beat them or not, I think it's going to be one of those things where you could really sell that, hey, Illinois matters. Illinois football is important. You could play in a nice big environment like this, and compare it to some of the places like Notre Dame, Michigan, and what have you. So that game against Ohio State, there's a lot hinging on it, but that's the one that I'm really looking forward to. Okay,
I like it. Do you think anything on your schedule is a trap game? Like, do you think anything on your schedule is like, if we're just doing amazing, let's say you beat Ohio State and you're 7-0 or whatever that number is there another game after that where you're kind of going, man, this one, I hate this game. I don't like where this is situated and who it's against?
Yeah, there's a couple tough ones. I think after you play Ohio State, you go to the other side of the country. Obviously, you get a bye week after that, but you have to go to the other side of the country and play Washington, who's no slouch. And their defensive coordinator is Ryan Walters, who was the defensive coordinator here a couple years ago and left to be the head coach at Purdue. Did not do very well, but that game is definitely one to keep an eye on. And for some reason, they always have a little bit of trouble at home, coming off of those big emotional games or a road trip. So that game versus Rutgers at home Saturday, November 1st, I think is also a huge trap game, especially after you play the Ohio State and the Washington game. It's very easy to have a letdown at home. versus a team like Rutgers. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. If there was one game that you want to win every year, like who is that rival? Who is the team where you guys just do not like each other? It doesn't matter. You're never going to cheer for them no matter what happens. Do you have that team or that school on your schedule?
yeah, definitely. I think it's tough because we always want to beat Northwestern. You
Okay.
always want to kick their butt, but they don't really have too much of a fan base. And I'm being completely honest about it. They don't really have much of a social media presence. There's not really much to chirp at, and you go to these
It's not
games.
fun.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're definitely a school that we want to beat.
Yeah.
But there's no one really to talk to.
Talk trash to. Yeah. Come on.
So it's hard to pick one outside of Northwestern. Purdue, there used to be a little bit of bad blood, but the way that the Brian Walters era turned out, there's really not much to talk about anymore. Indiana likes to puff out their chest, also a basketball school, and say, hey, look at us now, where we went to the college football playoff in just 1 year, etc. So that's kind of brewing a little bit. And Michigan's always kind of a thorn in the side. We don't play them every year just because of how the schedule works out, but I think every time we go against Michigan, and we're getting to a point where us playing Michigan turns out to be pretty evenly matched.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah. I like that. I think the thing I'm learning through like just talking to different teams is like who different rivals are and who cares about what. And so I will be honest and say no one has ever been like, I don't even know where their fans are. Like, I don't even know.
It's true. There's no Northwestern person to talk to. It's kind of hard to find that one person that he's a huge Northwestern guy.
Yeah, it's that guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So thinking about the team, is there one like college football player that you would add that you wish from any team, from any university that you could add to make your team better, or that you would love to just have be a part of your team?
Yeah, I think heading into the 2026 draft, there's a lot of QBs that people have an eye on, Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers, Drew Aller from Penn State, but I don't think we need a quarterback given how good Luke Altmaier has been. So if we could pair an edge rusher alongside Gabe Akis, a guy like TJ Parker from Clemson, that would be huge. That guy's a sack monster. Or giving just a go-to playmaker on the perimeter in Mekhi Lemon from USC. Speedster. Illinois hasn't had that kind of speedy guy. It's always been kind of like a bigger vertical threat who just makes a lot of catches. So having like that speedster like Mekhi Lemon would be really, really cool to see. We have so many running backs. I was going to say Jeremiah Love, but we have so many running backs. I can't just throw any running back like that. So
I like that. And I don't know if I've heard those two names. I'm going to say it, and then of course I would have heard it, but I don't think I've heard those two names. So I like it. I like when people are creative with it. Like, we're good here. Ooh, I would love to have that guy.
Yeah. You got to be selective.
Yeah.
Arch Manning versus Luke Altmaier. I'm rolling with Luke Altmaier.
Love it. Okay, cool. Listen, I think that every team needs something a little bit different. And just because something works on one team, it might not necessarily work on another team. And I'm okay with that. So I love that. So tell me, what are you thinking about as we head into 2025? We're literally what feels like some moments seconds away. It's not seconds away. It just kind of feels that way because we're getting so close. But what is something that you're just thinking about as a whole when it comes to this football program or this football season, or like, what are you all writing about? Like, what is the thing where you're like, we're keeping an eye and we're so focused on this thing?
Yeah, I think it goes back to like, it's kind of too good to be true, especially given where the state of the program has been. Our class of 2026 per the 24/7 sports rankings is in the top 10. We're killing it on the recruiting trail. And there's more to come. So it's one of those things where you really just hope that this team is ready to capitalize on the momentum, because they had that good year back in 2022, 2023, and they had a kind of a letdown of a season despite having some NFL talent. So you just really, really hope that, no injuries happen and that they can take advantage of this moment. Because if there's a way to kind of take advantage of some of these moments and you win your non-con, and you set up a really big stage at home versus Ohio State, you could definitely say that Illinois football is back. So
Yeah.
you're just hoping that nothing goes wrong. There's no injury. There's no major injury. There's going to be something that happens. Obviously, that's the nature of the game.
Yep.
But you just hope
Gotta
that
have
it's
some
nothing.
adversity.
Exactly. You just hope that it's nothing major and it doesn't. And you don't fall where you're supposed to succeed. Like losing at Duke, or going to Purdue and dropping the game before Ohio State, or winning or doing pretty well against Ohio State, and then coming back home and losing at versus Rutgers. So you just hope some of those things don't happen, but there's definitely going to be games that, they're not expected to win, that they win. And then games that, they're expected to win, that they lose. So that's just the nature and the painful part of sports.
Yeah. Do you all have Ohio State circled? Is it that big of a moment, or is it just something you're thinking about because you spend a lot of time going through and thinking through Illinois football?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mix of both. I think not many people realize the, kind of the impact that this game could have, and some of the things that could go right. A very attainable 6-0, or at least a 5-1 to head into a home game. And I don't think people have realized that it could be a big moment. So I think that's what we're definitely going to harp on as the season comes. It's, do your job, get to 5-1 or 6-0, and have a show up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I would love that. I love upsets until it's my team being upset.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
I hate these. But I like watching them for other fan bases, because I don't think anything beats an upset. Especially that would be a huge one. So I can't even imagine how exciting that would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be. The season would probably definitely sell out after that game, if it hasn't already. Like, people would be like, like, sign me up. I want to be a part of this. Right. And then I will open it up for you. I don't know if you have just anything. Again, you do not have to ask me a single question, but when I get feedback, I try very hard to be truthful to the feedback. So I don't know if you have any questions for me or anything else that you want me to add. If not, we will end on you, like whatever you're thinking, whatever you want to say. Maybe there was something you came into this conversation wanting to say that you haven't been able to say. So I want to give you that space if you have anything that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, what's the team that you are super behind on and or not behind on, but really supporting? And coming into this, what was your perspective on the Illinois program, and what was your overall impressions of the program?
I love this. Well, I'm a huge Texas fan. Like, that's my school. Obviously. So I'm always a fan of them, right? Mm-hmm. I think sans them, and just kind of thinking about college football as a whole, there's a couple of teams that I'm looking at, just trying to see where they're going to fit. I think one of them is Michigan, because I feel like they lost a lot, but I kind of like what they're doing from afar. And I don't know, something just feels good to me with them. I just don't know what it is, but something about them. Miami's another team where I'm kind of like, is it? Maybe. So those are kind of the two teams where I'm thinking, what is this? Because I think those two teams also have the ability to come in and shake a lot of things up because of the teams and the schedules that they play. And so I'm very fascinated to see what they do this year. And then as far as Illinois football, honestly, when I started doing my research, just figuring out who I wanted in my top 25, how I was going to do it, I kept seeing Illinois just like, it was like, main school. And then at the bottom, it was like, don't sleep on. And I was like, everybody kind of is saying it, but nobody wants to stand on it. Like, nobody wants to say, like, they're in my list. But then as lists started rolling out, I started to see them pop up. And I started to see like certain people like defending them in comment sections. And so I took notice, and I was like, well, let me look into this. And so I looked, obviously I saw all the returners. I saw the schedule, because I think a lot of this is returners, is schedule, is comfortability. I'm a trenches woman. So if you have a solid offensive line, sign me up for that. And then, so like, there's just a lot of different things where I was like, this maybe could work actually. And that's what I was thinking. I didn't know what the fan base was like, though. I didn't know. And I'll be honest with you. Illinois was a team that I starred, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this person. And I might not do this series, because I'm not going to do 24 teams and have one team that I wasn't able to get. So yeah, that's kind of how, because I didn't know. I just never, I haven't ever spoken with an Illinois fan that is like a football fan. I
Mhm.
know, like Syracuse fans and Illinois fans and, other schools that are like other sport fans.
Yeah.
And so for me, this was super cool. I was excited to talk to you just to learn
Yeah.
more about the program to see if you're feeling everything that I'm hearing down in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, sorry for the arch banding shots that I kind of threw.
Oh, no,
Um,
I'm not a fan. I'm not that kind of fan. No, I always
right,
say I'm a
right.
real fan. Yeah, no, I'm a realistic fan, and everybody doesn't like everybody, and that's okay with me, right? I
Yeah.
think that's what recruiting is for. Everybody, Texas might think some guy's a 5-star, and you guys might think he's a 3-star. Okay,
Mhm.
it's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to like everything I like. That's fine. I'm okay with
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I think Illinois fans they will go to bat for their team. It may not be, especially for basketball. I know Texas has played Illinois at least a
Yeah,
couple years ago
yeah,
at Madison Square Garden. That was a fun game.
yep.
But they go to bat for their program, and I'm really trying to, at least on our site, just try to get people to really care about the football program because they're doing some things that really haven't been done in quite some time. So you got to show out, you got to support, and
Yeah,
I just it really pained me as a student to see like people like not going to tailgates, not going to certain things just because they weren't very good. And now that they're
right.
good, you have to show up. So
Yeah.
that's definitely going to be a hammering point for us.
I love it. Well, I will end on you. I will say this though. So I don't know how many Illinois like people I reached out to on Twitter and people I was in DMs obviously. That's how we connected. But the one thing that at least 3 people said back to me was I am a huge fan. I support the program. However, I watch more basketball than I do football and I don't know if I can actually talk to you about the football team. And so I feel like you're spot on with people being like caring and investing and understanding. And it's not that they don't understand football. I think it's just that they're kind of like, I don't trust them. So I'm
Yeah,
just going to stay away from them.
right.
So there's people there. It's just, figuring out who wants to talk about football. So
Mhm.
that was the hardest get. So I'm happy you're here. I appreciate you for talking to me, teaching me more about what's going on, how it's going on. And then obviously when this releases, we're putting it on Twitter, we're putting it on everywhere. So maybe, who knows, maybe you'll get some fans coming out of the woodwork that are like, all right, I'm invested if you say so. So
Love that.
I do what I can on my part. But anyways, I will end
Yeah.
on you. So whatever you say, I will end after you're done.
Awesome. No, thank you for having me. This was super fun. Love talking about the program, and I really appreciate you having me on. And hopefully we connect soon or sometime later in the future. But awesome
Yeah,
cheers. Love it.
yeah, you're welcome. If they make it into the playoffs, be ready for that DM
I
coming your
got
way
you.
so
I
like I can
got you.
talk to you again.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks
Okay,
again.
thanks.